there has never been a more important time to move in a vegan direction. Whether you're ready to start, restart, or re-energize your vegan or plant-based practice, this podcast is for you. I'm Michelle Olander, life coach, vegan, ADHD matriarch, travel lover, and smoothie loather. And I know that it's the details that get in the way of your vegan journey. But I like to believe that the obstacle is always the way. So every week we meet here where I translate the tools of life coaching and Stoic philosophy. I bring you actionable tips, some laughs, interesting guests, and vegan ideas for everyone at any age. All to help you veg your best. Episode 228, Your Brain on Plants. So I read this the other day, kids. You can always edit a bad page, but you can't edit a blank one. You can always edit a bad page, but you can't edit a blank one. I think that is, okay, maybe this speaks to me more than others, but I thought it was such a powerful reminder from an extremely prolific writer, Jodi Picoult, that taking action, even very imperfectly, is so much better than not taking action at all. Now, I only recently heard of Jodi Picoult when a book club that I'm actually not really a member. I'm just kind of tangentially related to the person who runs it. But the book club chose one of Jodi Picoult's books, and I actually don't recommend the specific book, so I'm not going to mention the title here. But she's written tons of others, and I'm sure most of them are great. But I do recommend this quote that I just suddenly ran into of hers. And I was thinking, is that just 100% universal? You know, you learn about something or someone, and then you see it, or you see them, or you hear about it everywhere else. It's reinforced everywhere. It's something that I remember my oldest daughter used to share with my mom. They would save them for each other, things that they learned, new things that they learned, and then would start to see pop up everywhere. And it's actually a feature of the human brain. It's actually a feature of human thought, and it can feel really magical when you experience it, like a new word or a vacation destination that you've never heard of, and then you see one thing and then it's everywhere, or a repair necessary in the house, or in my case, a repair that was necessary on the car that I drove solo down from New England to Florida, never thinking about this particular part of the cooling system, but now I know a lot about it. It's things that you've never ever heard of or experienced, and then it seems like it's everywhere. Well, partially, a good portion of it anyway, is because your brain has a feature, not a bug, but a feature called the RAS, the reticular activating system. And I'll go back and forth calling it RAS or reticular activating system because I think most people will call it RAS, but it's good to know that it stands for something. And so we'll call it the reticular activating system. And the first time that I heard about it was way back, either in the 80s, pretty sure it was in the 80s, pretty sure it was Tony Robbins that mentioned it. And honestly, I did not believe that it was actually a real thing. I thought it was kind of motivational speaker nonsense. And yet, for sure, I could recognize that experience of learning something new, hearing something new, experiencing something new, and then having it show up everywhere. But apparently, it's actual brain science. And this feature, I guess you could call it a gatekeeper in your brain, keeps you from being utterly overwhelmed by noticing literally everything that's coming at you all the time. So what to know about the reticular activating system and what difference does it make to us this week? Well, it plays a really important role in regulating our attention, our consistency and motivation. And when it comes to all sorts of behaviors, the reticular activating system plays a crucial role, a big part of regulating our attention, consistency, and motivation when it comes to all sorts of behaviors. But you don't often hear about the way in which understanding how your brain is working behind the scenes really makes a difference in your ability to adopt or maintain a vegan or plant-based diet. And that's why I'm here. That's why I'm here, to show you all the different ways and strategies and tools that are here for you when you veg your best. Now, I don't know how many different ways I've tried to say it over 226 or 7 consecutive weekly episodes, but how you go vegan, how you change your diet, how you try on a plant-based lifestyle, it's exactly how you do everything. How you do anything that you want to do and that you have a reason to do. But if it's not working and you find yourself stuck, understanding how this part of your brain works, the reticular activating system, it can give you a lot of insight into the challenges and the potential strategies for transitioning to and sustaining a vegan lifestyle, or transitioning to and maintaining any lifestyle that you want. So if you're stuck, this is really important information. So quick visualization of how the reticular activating system works. The RAS, it's a bundle of nerves located in the brainstem that acts basically as a filter between our senses and our conscious awareness. So by filtering the information that comes in through all your senses every second of your waking life, the RAS determines which sensory, I guess you'd call them inputs, are most relevant and important to bring to your conscious awareness. And it also, well, this is one I remember, my first experience with understanding the RAS, it also regulates waking. It plays a key role in sleep-wake transition. And the first time that I really experienced this was when I was a small child, spending the night in an old farmhouse in Pasco, Rhode Island with my grandparents. And I wanted to wake up very early to go with my grandfather to the market on a Thursday, I believe it used to be, in Webster, Massachusetts. So my gramps said if I was up, he would take me. Without an alarm clock, I was up, dressed, and ready to go. And even at the time, I could not believe that I had managed to do that. And I'm sure you've seen that in your own lives somewhere, where it seemed like somehow you had programmed your own inner alarm clock before you went to bed. That's the RAS. The RAS also works to create, all the automatic responses, the sort of default settings. And these are usually based on the neural pathways, the autopilot that you are in. What you do, what you think, how you behave, how you respond is pretty much the same today as it was yesterday, as it was 3 weeks ago when you are in the same situations. Which means you have a part of your brain, an actual part of your brain, reinforcing many subconscious beliefs, reinforcing the things you've done, the thoughts you've been thinking in a quiet, subconscious way for weeks, years, maybe decades. And it's really just trying to help. It actually does help. It helps you get through the day. It helps you drive. It helps you not be overwhelmed by every single thing that there is out there. And when it comes to change, and how many of us struggle with change, and why many of us struggle with moving in a vegan direction or adopting a plant-based diet, it's good to be able to visualize that your brain is actually a little bit at odds, especially in the beginning, with change, with your new idea. The reticular activating system has a tendency to automate behavior, and that means that the habits that you already have are deeply ingrained, and they seem so much easier than doing something else. And as the RAS filters information based on what has seemed to be important to you historically, for instance, for most of us, there are ideas that we grew up with that animal products, eating them is natural, normal, necessary, and nice. Many of us experience that the reticular activating system unconsciously focuses on information that supports these previous beliefs and maybe even discounts new information supporting the ease or the satisfaction or the completeness of plant-based alternatives. So what I'm trying to make us all give a little time to, a little extra thought to this week is that understanding how to work with your beautiful reticular activating system, which is just amazing. But if you can learn how to work with it, it can make a huge difference in any sort of motivation you feel you need or any goal setting you're having trouble with. But if you've started a plant-based challenge, maybe this month, or you're taking part in Veganuary, and by mid-January now you've been feeling a little disorganized or burnt out or out of steam, we need to help direct that beautiful bundle of nerves in our brain stems by reminding it frequently and clearly what actually matters to us right now, what we're trying to do. Setting clear, simple intentions about the behaviors you do want can really help, for want of a better verb, program the RAS to notice the relevant information, the helpful strategies and solutions that do exist. I personally help my coaching clients notice what are the specific obstacles that seem to derail them or slow them down. And we come up with a few simple, specific, super effective plans for those situations so that we can see some progress. Because when you understand that a lot of the initial resistance to dietary change is simply due to this part of your brain, the RAS, its preference for familiar patterns and default behaviors, you can just kind of smile and go, of course, that's why it's feeling a little bit hard. That's why it's feeling tricky. And you can persist so much more successfully through some of the early challenges when you're making a big move. So if you don't want to work with a coach who's used to helping you with all sorts of behavior change, you can still leverage your RAS, your reticular activating system, in any phase of your goal setting, whether you're starting, restarting, or re-energizing your vegan journey. So how do we do it? How do we work with our RAS instead of against it? Gradual change. Slowly introducing plant-based meals and ideas and questions and advocating for ourselves in specific low-stakes situations. This can really help reprogram the RAS over time, and it can make the transition feel much more natural, much less resistance, and also positive reinforcement. We want to focus on the benefits of a vegan lifestyle or a plant-based diet. That can help create more and more positive associations and encourage your RAS to filter in the supportive information about ethics, animal agriculture, about health and wellness and sustainability, or the impact on the climate. Continuing education, and I don't mean a massive course or getting a certification. I just mean continuing a little bit of learning about plant-based nutrition daily or weekly. This can really help address the concerns we may have carried around for decades about potential deficiencies, or just like, why would my mom and doctor have never mentioned it to me when I was growing up if this was such a great idea? So we have that maybe that's been thought many, many times. So I want to introduce with some continuing education why this is really a great idea for some of us. Allow that reticular activating system to focus on solutions rather than the obstacles. Also, this all sounds like mindfulness, doesn't it? Just knowing how many automatic thoughts and behaviors related to food choices are always popping up in our heads. Just knowing that can really help us observe when the RAS is in action. And we can just consciously, in small ways, continue redirecting our focus. Now, I know it sounds woo. I know it does. I know it sounds unsciency, but goal visualization, regularly visualizing the specifics of the vegan lifestyle you actually want, the one you yourself are aiming for, not necessarily the way anyone else is doing it, the way you want to proceed. This will help train your RAS to notice the opportunities, the information, the allies, maybe even the coaches and podcasters that are closer than you may have thought. Now, today's episode was all inspired by the book club selection I mentioned right at the beginning, a novel by a writer that I had been unaware of until the last, about 2 or 3 weeks ago. And then I saw her work was everywhere. And then I saw this excellent quote from that very same author, Jodi Picoult. You can always edit a bad page, but you can't edit a blank one. You can always edit a bad page, but you can't edit a blank one. Let's keep this in mind when we're thinking about the reticular activating system, the RAS, that bundle of nerves in your brainstem that's filtering information. You may get things wrong. You may get things messed up. It may feel awkward, but you can edit them. You can always edit. If you're going forward, you can always tweak it. You can always look at it again. You can always try something a little bit different. And for sure, we are going to talk about that. Well, for sure, I'm going to talk about that quote many, many times this year as I teach my reticular activating system to remind me of how I can use these ideas in my business, in my content creation, in this podcast, and in my personal life. How can I be brave enough to do a bad page, be a bad vegan sometimes, be a bad vegan coach once in a while, be a lousy plant-based cook or not a very knowledgeable animal advocate, or do one shaky push-up? How can we get started so that we can get better? Whatever it is, you can just start to veg your best. Veg Your Best podcast production, music, and editing by Charlie Weinshank. Thanks, Charlie. Before you go, it would mean so much to me and the Veg Your Best team if you would hit subscribe, leave us a 5-star review, or share with someone you think might be interested. Something about algorithms, it helps bump us up a little in the rankings, and that's the best way to help others find the podcast and for us to find our audience. So, until next week, make it easy and veg your best.